So I have a story from when I was 17 years old that to this day is unsettling to me and scary, and I still don't even know what to make of it, to be honest. But when I was 17, my best friend at the time, Matt, wanted to go visit his brother in Mississippi. Matt's brother was stationed in Mississippi with the Navy, and he lived in this house with his girlfriend and this other guy who was a Navy SEAL. I never met him, but I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, so the whole plan was to go to Mississippi, hang out with Matt's brother, and then we were going to go to New Orleans and go hang out on Bourbon Street and do all that. The drive was about 2 or 3 hours for me and Matt. So while we're driving there, Matt decides to tell me then, hey, by the way, my brother's house is haunted, ha 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 ha, they've been having some problems, you know, isn't that crazy? And I immediately got irritated that he didn't tell me that before. And if you guys don't know this about me, I grew up in a haunted house, and my parents had to have priests come through and bless the home and all that. So there's history there for me, and it's just uncomfy to me, and I don't want to be around it. That's it. So we end up getting there. I meet Matt's brother and his brother's girlfriend, and they're super cool, and we're all talking, hanging out. They're telling us about, you know, what's been going on and all that stuff, and it was getting really bad for them. But they end up telling us a story about what happened in that house. And the story is really sad because it was a mother and her son, and the son was playing in the driveway, and he ran into the street and got hit by a car and passed away. And the mother, being depressed, on the ceiling fan in the living room. Guess where me and Matt were sleeping? In the living room underneath the ceiling fan. And yeah, so first night, Matt decides to get really drunk and everyone else goes to sleep. It's midnight, Matt blacks out and he's dead asleep. And I'm I'm laying on the floor in the living room next to Matt. We had blankets and pillows, and we had a big flat screen TV in front of us, and I put on Something Happy, and I put on the movie Jackass. And I'm sitting there and I'm slowly nodding off. And do you know when you're sitting at night in front of a TV screen and you can kind of see the light flashing over your eyelids? You can like see the screen almost. So yeah, I was seeing that. So as I'm falling asleep, I start feeling footsteps pressing into the carpet around my body. And I thought it was maybe Matt. So I turn and look, and Matt's sleeping. So it wasn't Matt. And the footsteps keep walking around my body, especially around my face. I feel the carpet pressing in around me. And my body goes into this state of fear. I was like frozen. I felt paralyzed, and I didn't know what to do. And next thing you know, the screen in front of me goes black. And I can hear Jackass playing, but it's just black. And I feel a heavy presence standing over me. And it felt like there was somebody standing over me, which is so unsettling to think about. And I start praying. That's like the only thing I feel like I was able to do. I just started like praying, like, God, protect me, like put a veil over me. I don't want to see this. Like, please go away. I didn't know what to do, and I end up falling asleep. Don't know how, but I did. And yeah, we wake up. I told them what happened. They're like, oh yeah, that's, you know, she walks through the hallway, she walks through the living room. And I was like, okay, that's creepy. So fast forward to the middle of the day. Matt's brother and his girlfriend, they go to work, and me and Matt are just hanging out at the house. We're in a good mood. We're not even thinking about anything, and we're sitting in the kitchen. So we're sitting in this round table in the back. So basically, I'm sitting here, and Matt is you, and behind me is a doorway, like a little bit further back behind me, and it goes to like the front door, and then the hallway down to the bedrooms, and then the living room. So me and Matt are eating boiled peanuts, talking, laughing. I have photos from this day, and we are in a great mood. And Matt looks right past me, and he goes, I'll name Matt's brother's girlfriend, Sarah. He goes, Sarah. And I'm like, Matt, Sarah's not here. And he goes, Sarah. And I was like, Matt, Sarah's not here. And then the door slams at the end of the hallway. And me and Matt spring up without saying a word to each other and haul ass out of that house. I've never ran so fast in my life, like genuinely. Like, we sat outside of that house until his brother and his brother's girlfriend came back. And we did not go back in until they came back. And we told them what happened. And they said, like, it's normal, it's been happening, and it's creepy. So that's pretty much all we experienced, I mean, at least that I can remember. And fast forward to what I heard is that Matt's brother and his girlfriend at the time, they ended up having to move out of that house. The Navy had to move homes for them because it got really aggressive, and whatever they were dealing with in there did not want them there. And yeah, that was not Sarah, and it was really unsettling for me. And yeah, to this day, I don't really know how to explain it, but I thought it was really creepy.
When I tell this story to this day, people do not believe me. When I was a freshman in college, I was going to a private school in Pittsburgh. I was leaving the next year. I was going to a different school. So my friends and I, some of us were leaving, some of us were moving, whatever. We decided we wanted to kind of hit all the different spots in Pittsburgh that we really liked. So we went to like Mount Washington. For those of you who don't know, it's like a really nice lookout over Pittsburgh. And there was a place near our school, and it was called the Fountain of Youth. It was essentially just like a well that people in the town used to go to when it was in use. So we went there. It was nighttime. It wasn't like midnight. It was like 9 or so. It wasn't super late. We went there, and the way that this well was set up, it was like carved. There was a piece carved out of a rock formation, and then you'd walk in and then get water out of the well inside of it. So the people who were like shorter or smaller, they went inside, and like, I'm tall, so I wasn't gonna like go in there, but other girls were going inside and just like checking it out and seeing what it looked like. And the rest of us were standing outside, taking pictures, just like messing around, waiting, hanging out, you know, talking. The girls inside, one of them said, hey, I can kind of hear like rocks moving around in here. It sounds like there's something else in here. And we were all like, oh, okay, well, that's probably an animal, so just like come out. So as she's like leaving and coming out and saying like, I can hear something in here, the girls who are outside, me specifically, my phone died, turned off completely. It was at 70-80%. It was not anywhere close to dying. Turned off, died. Other girls' phones started dying. Then we heard a growl, and it did not sound like an animal. It sounded more like a human being trying to mimic what an animal sounds like when they growl. And we found this out later, that the girls inside the cave heard the same exact thing coming from inside the cave. We heard it outside in the woods. We all run and book it to the car. We get back. We're all like, we're done. That's it. Whatever. I'm going to take a shower. I'm changing, and I see in the mirror handprints on my shoulder. Like someone just grabbed it like that and left those prints. I tell everybody, check yourselves, because I just found this on myself. The one girl who was in the well lifts up her shirt. I look, she has 3 scratch marks down her back. I was like, nope, we're done. I started praying. I said, if there's something attached to us, get it away from us. I want no part of that. And that was it.
Okay, it's my time to shine. So basically, I grew up in a very haunted house. I had a lot of really scary, weird, crazy shit happen in that house that I still almost don't believe to this day, because it's that out there. I'm not going to tell you the super scary ones right now, because I'm home alone for the next few days, and whenever I start talking about the things that used to haunt me, and I do say haunt, like literally haunt, they kind of come back around for a little bit. So I don't really want to get into that right now, but I will in a couple days if you guys are interested. Also, this isn't my normal content, so don't follow me if you want more of this. I post about reading. I read books. So this happened to my mom, which makes it even crazier because I come from a family who is very aware of the paranormal, but it's also like, don't acknowledge it and it won't acknowledge you. Like, that's how my family is, at least. Everyone like fully believes in it, but also no one ever acknowledges or talks about it. And there's only been a couple instances where something was so crazy we had to tell each other, and this is one of them. So we have a saying with the women in our family, which is like, if you have a problem, sleep on it. Now that I'm older and there's like all these terms for all these things, it is like absolutely ancestral fucking dream witchery going on in my family. This has been like this my whole life, but just as recently as a few months ago, I started having dreams every single night, intense, vivid dreams that I was pregnant. And this one night, I was so convinced I was pregnant at this point. I was like, please, I was like, if I have one more pregnancy dream tonight, then I know for a fact I am pregnant. That night, I had a dream that my best friend came up to me and I took a pregnancy test and she handed it to me and it was positive and she was like, you're pregnant. I woke up the next day and I was like, my best friend's fucking pregnant. A week later, she tells me that she's pregnant. Then she asked me like, well, what do you think the gender is going to be? And she hadn't got her results back yet. And I told her, well, let me dream on it. So I kind of meditated on it. I went to sleep and that night I had a dream. I could tell you about the dream if you want to know. And it was a boy. And then she had her gender reveal. It was a boy. It was very lovely. But all of my dream witchery shit, I get from my mom, who gets it from my grandma, who probably gets it from her lineage all the way fucking back to Adam and Eve, I guess. But my mom had a best friend. I grew up with her. She was my aunt. I love her. I want to change her name in this story. So I'm going to call her Nora. So my aunt Nora and my mom were best friends for years and years and years, and they met when my aunt moved down from like a more northern state down to my mom's home state, and that's how they met and became friends. And every year my aunt Nora would go on a road trip back to her hometown to like visit all of her family. And my mom, she had this really icky feeling about her, and she was like, I don't know if like, obviously like you need to go, but just be careful. I have a really bad feeling about you driving up there. Just be safe and like call me when you get there, all these things. And my aunt was like, well, we make this drive all the time. We're gonna be fine, but I know that you're kind of like witchy and you're kind of weird, so I'll make sure to be careful and I'll just call you when I get there. On the day that my aunt is driving up, my mom is like a workhorse. She is always working. She never gets tired. But this one day, my mom gets so incredibly exhausted. She's like, I have to go lay down. I have to take a nap. Like I physically cannot stay awake. So she goes in her bedroom, lays down, goes to sleep, and she wakes up in the back of my aunt's car. My uncle's driving, my aunt's in the passenger seat, my mom's sitting in the middle back seat, looking up in between them. My mom's entire body gets filled with this dread feeling from like head to toe, dread. And she leans forward, she grabs both the seats and she leans forward in between their heads and she starts looking between them and screaming, stop the car, stop the car. And she's looking at my uncle who's driving and she's like, Johnny, I had to change his name. Johnny, stop the fucking car, screaming at him. Obviously, she's dreaming, she's having a dream, so they're not hearing her. So my mom's yelling at them, stop the car, but then this like primal thing just takes over her and she looks over at my aunt. She goes, Nora, tell him to stop the fucking car. And she's like screaming. And then my aunt just kind of looks over and then slams her hand like on my uncle's chest and goes, Johnny, stop the car. And he's like, what? And she's like, stop the car. He slams on the brakes. They're going through a green light at this intersection. And he slams on the brakes, stops at the green light, and as they're stopping, the semi-truck blows through a red light and just is like starts honking his horn and just completely barrels through the red light. And then my mom looks over at him, looks over at her. The two of them are looking at each other like, what the fuck? And then my mom's laying in bed and she just opens her eyes. She sits up, she's sweating, her heart's racing. She's like, and then her phone starts ringing. And she looks over, she grabs the phone, looks at it. It's my aunt. She answers it. And my aunt goes, I think you just saved my life. And my mom was like, I think I just saved your life. And then my aunt was like, I heard you scream. I stopped the car because I heard you scream at me to stop the car. She's like, you just saved my fucking life. And that's the story on how my mom saved her best friend's life through a dream. Oh, I have chills. I get chills every time I think about that because, oh my God. Oh my God. It's so crazy. And it makes you wonder, like, it just makes me think, what is real? What is real? What don't we know yet? I love this shit, man. If you have any stories, I have to know. Anyone who stitches this girl's videos, I'm going to be watching them. I love stories so much. I love ghost stories. I love dream stories, everything.
Okay, I have one, and I have a few, but I'm going to share one that's a little bit different than some of the things that I've been seeing on this trend so far. And in order to tell you about that, I have to tell you about this. Since I was in my early teens to my mid-20s, I've been having this reoccurring dream, and it was always about this house. How you would get to this house was you would cross this little bridge. It was like with the river underneath it. The house was always embedded into the right side of a hill, and most of the time it was an older white house, but sometimes the house would shift into something more modern. But it didn't matter what iteration of that house you would walk up to, it would always have floor to ceiling bay windows. And when I would go into this house, I would always hang a left through this living room, and the further into the back of the left of the house I would get, the more this house would kind of shift into something else. And the more that it started to shift into something else, like just another house, another like dwelling, like very weird, empty, like 80s plasticky kind of vibes, the more I would feel like I shouldn't be there. And once that feeling was like too strong, I would just walk back up through the regular living room and back up into the foyer. Now in the foyer, there was a staircase that split up at the top, and it wasn't like a grand staircase. It was just straight up narrow staircase with a landing, and then once you got to the landing, there were 2 little steps up that would lead you into 2 bedrooms. I don't have any idea what's in these bedrooms. I never made it up there. Every time I would get to basically where the landing was at, I would be filled with this feeling of dread, and this feeling that I shouldn't be here. This feeling was tangible. It was thick. There was a lot of pressure, like physical pressure on my chest, and once it would bubble up, usually a voice would be like, "Go, get out of here," and I would boot it down the stairs every single time. Back down the stairs, we're done. Something in my head said, "Don't look back," but every single time I would run down the stairs, I could feel something big and thick and like hot following me down the stairs, and I never turned around to see what it was. I was far too scared to do that, and usually by the time I would get to the bottom of the stairs, my body would wake me up because I'd be so freaked out. Trigger warning for this next little section: if you don't like gore, move a little bit ahead because it's a very quick piece. But at one time I went up the set of stairs in my dream, and I didn't notice it on the way up, but there was just this woman's head at the landing, like just on the landing, like neck up, and I'm like, oh my god, that's somebody's head. And the person was still alive, which was the weirdest like thing to me. It was just this woman. She had like regular curly brown hair, nothing like out of the ordinary, except that she was missing her whole entire body. But she saw me see her, and when she saw me see her, the look on my face must have been the funniest thing she'd ever seen, because she just started shriek laughing at me. Like my shock, my fear was like a joyful thing to her, and that dream had me like thinking about it for weeks. And I just was like, I have to tell somebody about it at this point. I don't know what to do. So like I'm having these dreams all the time. So my mom and I are driving home one day from our campsite, and I decided to tell her what I just described. And I could see her kind of start to white knuckle the steering wheel, and I could see her breathing start to change. And eventually she was like, "That's enough. That is enough." Like she wouldn't look at me. A, she was like driving, but B, I don't think she was freaked out enough. She didn't want to look at me. And I was like, what? Like, I'm just sharing my dream. She's like, that's enough. Like, I don't care. I'm freaked out right now. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she goes, I've had that same dream about that same house since I was 15 years old. She goes, I've never seen the woman you've described, but going into the left side of the house and it being a whole other house, going up the stairs, all this stuff, the bay windows, all of it, I have dreamt about this house since I was 16 years old. The fact that you had to cross the river to get to it, I've dreamt this all. And she and I just kind of like sat there in silence. Like, it's still like a very like, wow, a very jarring like thing to think about, but we didn't know what to do. So that I had to tell you this. My mom purchased a bungalow, her first time buying a home. She bought it off of a co-worker whose parents had passed. From my understanding, one had passed in hospital and one had passed in a long-term care facility. And so when we moved in, like, we were unhappy because we were a little bit further from our friends, but my mom loves this house. She still lives there. Some things to know is that the back of the house, there are 2 bedrooms that face out there. My mom's and my brother's, and my mom has these 2 giant windows. They're about 8-9 feet off the ground. Like, I'm 5'5", and I have to like reach up to get to the bottom of the windowsill. And the other thing you need to know is that there's a room that joins all of the bedrooms together. It's this tiny little like foyer area, but to the back of the house is my brother's room, then my mom's room, then the bathroom, and then my room, and then this little linen closet was like to the left of my room. And one night I'm having a dream, and it's pretty like normal in comparison to like the reoccurring dreams. So not really thinking, can't really remember much about what was happening, but it swirled and shifted into me still being in a dream, but being in the room that I was physically sleeping in at the time, like my bedroom. And I remember waking up in my dream to the room that I was in being pitch black, but the hallway, like that foyer, the connecting room, the light was on to that. So in my dream I was like, oh, let me go turn that off and I'll go back to bed. When I get into that connecting room, something inside my head goes, open the linen closet. And I do, no hesitation, I open it up, and standing in this linen closet that is too small for a person to physically be in is this woman. And she is wearing this like beige jacket, and I remember her lapels being like so big, it was like trench coat style, that like light khaki beige that a trench coat is. And she is soaking wet, and she's got shaggy hair that's to her like chin slash like just top of her shoulders, and she sees me see her just like that lady at the top of the stairs. And when she sees me see her, she looks at me like this, and then she goes, and I scared myself awake with that. Like that was enough. And it was very disorienting to wake up in a room that you just like seconds ago in your dream had physically left. Like it was so weird. But I got up, left the room, and as I'm leaving the room, my mom is leaving her bedroom, and she's like, what are you doing up? It's like 2, 3 in the morning. And I'm like, I just had a really bad dream. She goes, me too. And I was like, did the dog sleep with you tonight? And she goes, no, was she not with you? We had this little Jack Russell Shih Tzu mix named Annie, and she would always sleep in somebody's bed. She had free reign to go around the house. She could go up and down our basement stairs. She usually goes down to the basement, or did go down to the basement to do what she's not supposed to do, but no problem getting up and down the stairs. Now, my mom and I are like, where is she then? So we go and try and find her. She's not in the living room. So we go to the kitchen, and the kitchen, at the back of it, there's a set of stairs that lead down to our basement, and we can hear growling when we get to the kitchen. And we're like, what the hell? Like, we have, again, this yappy little Shih Tzu Jack Russell mix. It's more of that like yip, 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 like that kind of a dog than, well, she was loud, but, and a barker, but she was not a growler. So to hear her have this guttural growl at the base of the stairs was crazy. She was at the bottom of the stairs. All of the lights in the basement were on, and they were not on when both of us went to bed. There's nobody else in the house. And the dog would not come up the stairs. We could not get her to come up, and she was just stuck growling. And it took us probably about 5 minutes to get her up there. My mom and I are freaked at this point, and I tell her what and who I dreamt about, and she goes, again, shut up, stop, like, please stop, I can't, like. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, that same woman, from, I could see her from her chest up, walked the entirety of my windows in the back room. The windows that I told you, if I wanted to reach from the ground, I had to, like, there was physically no way anybody could be walking across at that height unless they were 11 feet tall. Like, there's no way. And I described what she looked like, and I just watched my mom's face go like pale. She goes, she was wearing the fucking jacket. She was wearing that jacket for me too. That's exactly what she looked like. We had the same dream at the same time about the same person, and woke up from that dream at the same time because we saw this person in places that they physically could not fit into in the real world. I have no explanation for it. My mom and I talk about it all the time, and we can still not figure out what went down for this, to all of these puzzle pieces to like come together like this.